Hello, my name is James Hunter, and this is my 2 cents channel where I talk about topics from physical fitness to mental health and topics I may just want to discuss. And today I want to talk about the topic or the idea of commitment, making commitments, and this being the key to achieving and succeeding essentially any number of goals. But I'm going to talk about individuals who are, they made their New Year's resolutions, and so they're in the gym. They may be getting an exercise program, and it may not necessarily have to be in January. It could be any time in the year when someone decides they want to make some lifestyle changes. Excuse me. So you have individuals that they'll be given the information, provided education, if you will. And I've always said that education alone, if it was that simple, you just provide information to people and they would, you'd see changes and results over a period of time. But a lot of times with certain individuals, that's not what happens. Usually you'll see people fall off. They revert back to old habits, old behaviors as far as, food's concerned. They're not able to manage that situation, or they haven't fully committed. And you can get an idea of where a person is at based on the language and how the language they use and how they talk about it. And I'll give some examples here. So I want to first say that I've had a lot of clients who are very successful with making the lifestyle changes, taking ownership of their thoughts, their way of thinking, developing a relationship with food that allowed them to be successful. But there are those certain individuals that they just kind of either go back and forth. Maybe they have experienced some success and then they end up gaining weight back, or they just kind of go back and forth. They haven't fully made the lifestyle change, if you will, as a long-term solution. So with one individual, we were discussing her food or her nutrition for the week, if you will, and just kind of asked her how that's going, just get some feedback, and asked her if she'd been following the plan. And her response was a little bit, okay? So she said that, well, I've been following the food plan or the nutrition plan just a little bit. So, and what I do typically is that, I have a way of how I approach things. I'm not necessarily, I'm an assertive person, but I'm not like aggressive with people where I just speak the first thought in my mind because I'm thinking, that's bullshit. There is no such thing as little bit. Either you're following a nutrition plan or you're not. I'm not just doing it a little bit. You don't do a diet a little bit and succeed. You either are following it and being consistent, or you're not, as far as if you expect to have some results. Now, if you're somebody who's just, saying, well, what if a person just wants to make some changes over time and at least they're maybe eating a little bit healthier, there's something to be said about that, small changes over time. But at the same time, these types of individuals, if they're wanting to expedite or see results within a reasonable amount of time, which is within what's possible, then they should not be complaining when they don't see that happen as quickly as they'd like to see when there's failure to commit and take responsibility. So an honest person or a person who keeps it real, if you're just to say, hey, how's the diet going as far as, the strategy we talked about, it's the meals, the macros, you can talk about the calories and all that and so on and so on. Everyone's nutrition plan isn't always the same, but the point is when you ask them, are they following it? I have a lot more respect for someone who just says, no, I really haven't, and just be honest and say, okay, well, I can respect that. You're just not ready to change yet. And there's something to be said about that in honesty. I know some individuals that, at least they're exercising, and that's cool. They come in the gym, they work out 3-4 days a week. Are they benefiting? Yes, of course they're benefiting. They're improving their cardiovascular health, the strength and conditioning. They're benefiting from that as well. Now, would they have a more optimal outcome if they did both and just ate appropriately for their nutritional needs to support their goals and their health? Of course, they're going to get a lot more out of it if they're eating correctly or making the effort to make a commitment. So by commitment, does that mean being perfect? I want to be clear. No, it doesn't mean you're perfect, but by making a commitment for change, what that means is that you get a plan and then you're willing to work that plan over time. And if you make a mistake or fall back a little bit, you take ownership of it, and you call it for what it is. There is no little bit. So if you didn't eat healthy for a couple of days and you just, went well over what your estimated calorie requirements were on those particular days, let's say you're just eating cupcakes, and just think of some of the worst foods possible that just have a lot of calories that are going to weigh you down, don't give you much nutrients, ice cream, enriched processed type flours, processed carbs, just starchy things that, basically are going to be work against your goals if you're trying to lose weight, for example. And then you're not eating any protein, right? It's all carbs and so on and so on. So if someone has like slipped into that, there is no little bit. You didn't do your diet, well, a little bit. No, you didn't do your diet at all. And so the basis for changing your life and changing behaviors is to go off of that which is true and ownership of behavior. So back to what I said earlier a moment ago, the scenario I gave, let's say someone is for 2 days on the weekend. Let's say it's a weekend, right? Let's say they just went overboard and just totally went way off what is reasonable for their diet. And they were to come in on Monday and just say, you know what? No, I didn't follow my diet at all this weekend. I just totally screwed up. And it's what it is, right? It wasn't a little bit situation, So that is something that as a personal trainer, as a counselor, as someone trying to facilitate change, I can work with that. I can work with that all day long, and I'll take that all day long, because that's someone who is dealing with honesty. And once you start to identify the behaviors in your life, those situations when they happen, you can start looking at things like whether it's triggers, not managing stress, cravings. There's a lot to be said for cravings, but guess what? You will not die. You won't die if you have cravings. You can get through them and use other things to deal with them. Grounding techniques is one. Restructuring your thinking, cognitive restructuring is one way of dealing with situations, how you view it, your perspective. So there is no little bit on a diet or a nutrition plan. I used to watch George Carlin when he was alive, and George Carlin, he was fascinated about the play on words and how things would come across. And so he would talk a lot about our expressions, and he would say, when he was at the airport, I'll give an example. George Carlin told some jokes about when people are at the airport, they call it the boarding process, right? Well, you're either in the plane or you're not. There is no, they call it like a process. And then he would say, they would announce, it's time to get on the plane. George Carlin he would say, fuck that, let Evel Knievel get on the plane. I'm going to get in the plane, right? So the words we use, George Carlin would call out bullshit in terms of logic and reason in his mind. So you think about what is said. It's time for people to get on the plane. I'm going to get on the plane. Well, if you take that literally, you're literally getting on top of the plane, as George Carlin was making a joke about, and to which he said, the F word, fuck that, let Evel Knievel get on the plane. I'm going to get in the plane. So likewise, people, sometimes we don't pay attention to our words, or we know the reason may not necessarily make sense, but because we are trying to come up with an excuse, a rationalization to reduce anxiety, so we don't either feel bad or look bad, or we feel like it's just going to make us too anxious to simply say, you know what, I screwed up. We'll say, well, I was on my diet a little bit, or I'm doing my diet a little bit. So in terms of the overall concept of working a plan, you either committed or you're not if you want results. So there is no little bit. And I'm not trying to confuse that with anyone who's thinking, well, hey, wait, what about making small changes? At least they're making small changes. That's a whole other issue. And you know what? Yeah, that is good, making small changes. But as far as outcome and expecting, because here's the issue, you have people who have an expectation of results, and their expectations are not realistic because they're incongruent with their behavior, and that they're not committed to a plan and following that plan, if that makes sense. So anyways, this is just some of my 2 cents on making commitments. And either you're in or you're not. You're either in the plane or you're out of the plane, right? Let Evel Knievel get on top of the plane. So I like to kind of think about the play on words that people use, and this will happen when people get anxiety about addressing their behavior tied into changing behaviors, particular to things that deal with our health and so on and so on. So if you liked the video, gave you a way to maybe had you think about some things, like the video, I appreciate it. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate that too. I appreciate the support. I'm going to continue making videos on topics from physical fitness, mental health, wellness, and just topics of discussion. Hopefully this year, working on getting a different type of a camera to where I can shoot some videos out of the gym when I'm doing my workout, because I will be doing bodybuilding, classic physique class in the MPC this year again, like I did last year. I'm also going to do a powerlifting meet. Weight class will probably be about 165 or thereabouts. We'll see how that goes. So I'll be putting some videos up of that kind of stuff here later this year. If you have any suggestions of things you would like to hear me speak about, drop them in the comment below. My professional background over the last more than 20 years has been both physical fitness, mental health, and I've also worked with individuals in substance abuse, drug addiction rehabilitation in that field. So thank you for watching. Take care. It's hump day, or almost to the weekend, and have a good day. Thank you.